What is up, y'all? Welcome on back to another review of Alien Earth Season 1, where I'm giving you my full spoiler thoughts on episode number 2, titled Mr. October. So, like I mentioned, full spoilers from this point forward. So, if you have not watched through episode 2, this is your chance to push pause and then come back once you have caught up. But with that being said, let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So, they released the first 2 episodes on August 12th. I had a chance to watch it over a couple of days. I didn't watch it all in one sitting just because I was trying to do it at work. And of course, never had an opportunity to do it all in one sitting. But I ended up rewatching this episode twice because I had watched it initially. And then I don't want to say that I didn't like it because I did like the episode overall the first time that I watched it. But I kept seeing all these reviews saying, oh, episode 2, so damn good. Like it is peak Alien. And I was like, was it though? With all of those reviews and everybody telling me that the episode was great, I needed to go back and rewatch it and try to do it all in one sitting versus breaking it up into multiple watches. I understand why they released 2 at once because the first episode is a lot of setup. It's a lot of setup for the world that you're being introduced. I mean, it's a brand new side of the universe that we really haven't seen before in the Alien series. And then episode 2 kind of is just the height of all that tension, and it ends on a cliffhanger. But overall, I thought this was a great episode. So let's go ahead and jump into it and give you my specific thoughts on the episode, the good and the bad. First off, the set designs, I mentioned it in episode 1, phenomenal. Just absolutely phenomenal. All the different rooms in the crashed ship, along with the sound design and the score, really good for the most part. I think there's a couple of moments throughout the episode where I don't know if the score, it didn't necessarily fit the moment. I don't know what it was. Like, it was towards the end of the episode where Joe and Wendy are carrying a hug. The score plus the hug, I don't know. I was having a hard time figuring out why that seems so awkward. I don't know if it's because of the slow hug aspect of it or if it was the score. Something was thrown off there for sure. But overall, I really did enjoy that scene where Joe is trying to figure out if this really is Marcy. So he's asking her questions that only Marcy would know, and she's getting them right, of course. And then he just kind of leans in for a slow hug. And there was something about that particular moment in that scene that was a little off to me. I don't really know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But overall, the sound design and the score really creates this claustrophobic feeling to the environment that just adds an extra layer of depth to that tension. But while we're on the subject of score, let's just go ahead and get it out the way and let's just go ahead and talk about it, okay? And that is Tool Stinkfish to end the episode. I don't know of an Alien movie that has ever used a metal song in it. I could be wrong. If there is, leave me a comment below and correct me. But I believe this is the first time that we've had a metal track in an Alien property. And I will say this. I dig the song. The song is fucking great, okay? It's Tool Stinkfish, dope-ass song. Does it fit in the context of this universe? It's weird. It's almost the same thing that happened with Lord of the Rings back with the Rings of Power, where they introduced a song with words at the very end of one of their episodes. It was so weird and off-putting that it feels disgusting to even like it. It's just off-putting to me. So it doesn't feel right. I will say that. And I'm going to go ahead and lean towards me not liking it. But does it ruin the episode? Does it ruin the series or this franchise? No. I'm not going to be over dramatic about it. Would I have preferred them do something different? Sure. But this doesn't make me have a negative opinion about the episode overall, just based on them including a song from Tool. But it is kind of weird to see them incorporating things from like modern pop culture into this universe. So we've gotten Ice Age is apparently canon now. We've got Tool now that is apparently canon. It's just really weird seeing those things added into this story when you've been watching Aliens, 3, Resurrection, Prometheus, all the above. When you watch all those movies and then you come to this one and they're throwing some weird random shit in there like that, it throws you off. It's crazy to see that stuff in there. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to adding that stuff in there. I'm kind of indifferent about it. I think some of the elements of like the reflection and kind of flashing back, or like the reflections with Ice Age and all that, I think it's kind of dumb. I don't necessarily like it, but it's, again, not something that I'm going to overly criticize and say this is ruining the show or the series at hand. And while we're still talking about the end of this episode, I do want to go ahead and mention the special effects for that ending where Joe gets taken off by the xenomorph. The special effects for that don't look good. The special effects there do not look good. It looks like a steel background, and they're using a fan to blow her hair to make it move. It looked ugly, especially in comparison to the rest of what we've gotten episode 1, episode 2. The special effects, for the most part, have been truly magnificent. So this is like one of the weird little kinks in the armor for sure. But I'm not gonna lie, it looked bad. So a couple of big moments in this episode that I kind of want to dive into a little bit more. One, we have Wendy, who is, I guess we're showcasing some powers or some abilities that she has as like a more of an artificial intelligence type of synthetic called a hybrid. And she's able to manipulate other machines around her. Like her brother is talking to one of the robots that is going to determine whether he can go to med school or not. She's able to manipulate the robot and basically keep him there, decline him. And she's able to manipulate some of the camera feeds that is at the staging area for the spaceship. She's able to manipulate that, and we're getting a little bit more depth with some of her abilities for sure. I'm curious to know how far they're going to go with that aspect of it. Is she going to be able to manipulate more things? Is she going to be able to communicate with the xenomorph even? Because we've seen, and it's not just her, it's Sightly as well, where they realize that the xenomorph is coming, but I think it's more so that little blue hue around the eggs. Anybody wants to drop me a comment below of more of the lore behind that? I know it's kind of like a security system for the xenomorph to come running, and it's in basically every single Alien movie, but we don't really dive too much into it with the movies from what I understand. Again, I could be wrong, but it was nice to be able to see them kind of dive into that and further explain that, where they cross that little threshold, frequencies get manipulated, and they can start hearing things, and that's the xenomorph coming towards them. I like the fact that they're diving into that, fleshing it out a little bit more than what we've gotten in the past. But speaking of the xenomorph, I love the inclusion of all these different species of aliens, and not just the xenomorph. The xenomorph is awesome, by the way. But these alien species, where we have the one with the eyeball that's crawling around, that was pretty cool. We have this little plant thing hanging from the ceiling, and I can't wait to further explore some of these alien species and see what they're all capable of doing. Because right now we only have a little basic understanding of what a couple of them do. And the main one is the singular eyeball with the tentacles that can scurry on the ground. But definitely digging the gore and the action with the xenomorph. That Caspian party scene, so good. So good. It was such a left field moment, and it kind of highlights an aspect of this society that we may not have really seen up to this point. We really only focus on the poor, the unfortunate, and kind of the quote unquote peasant side of the society at large in all of these movies. So it's interesting to see them kind of explore the richer side of the society on Earth. And they're having this party, and then the xenomorph goes in there and just slaughters everyone. I love the part where the xenomorph jumps through that glass on the balcony and not necessarily takes out Joe, but crashes into Joe. And then we have Morrow, the cyborg, that comes in and basically electrifies it, and it becomes unconscious. The sound design in this particular scene is really, really great. I love the dynamic aspect of the sound design here, where once the xenomorph jumps through that glass, the audio just gets pushed to the background. All you can hear is the sound of Joe's heartbeat, and you can hear the crashing of the glass. You can hear them crashing into each other, and all that is back behind it. It's really toned down. So I just think that sound design aspect of that particular part of the scene just really great. And that kind of goes to show you some of the cooler things that we've gotten in this series so far. I mean, in the first episode, I mentioned how much I love that scene of them all transitioning from children into the hybrids and just how dynamic the filming of that scene was. So we have that, and then we have this where the audio is being played with a little bit with the sound design. That kind of shit just gets me diamond status almost instantaneously. But the last little bit of this episode that I want to talk to about, other than like the tension that builds throughout this episode with the xenomorph kind of hunting everybody down in the spaceship, and by everyone, I mean really just Joe. Once he sees Joe and Joe escapes, the xenomorph is like, oh, well, shit, I gotta go after him now. Like, I can't let him punk me out like that. So he goes after Joe for a majority of the episode, and that adds a lot of tension, and I really dig all of those scenes. The last little bit of this review that I want to talk about is the corporations of the world. One specifically is kind of a concept that we've gotten before in this series that I think is being expanded on here, and I'm very curious to know where they're going to take it in subsequent episodes. And then the other little part of that is I love the aspect of the corporations kind of butting heads with each other. That seems really cool to me. So I want to start off with Boy Cavalier kind of finding the answer to immortality. If you go back to Prometheus, Wayland that was the whole point of him going to that planet. He was trying to find immortality. So we have Boy Cavalier in episode 1 who is able to transfer the mind of a dying child into a synthetic and make that a hybrid. Now, they even mention it in this episode that there is a way to achieve immortality. What effect does this have on not only this series, but the Alien franchise at large, that we have now achieved immortality? What is the overall effect here? What are we going to see the ripple effect throughout the subsequent properties? I think is very interesting, especially considering the fact that we have properties, movies that come later than Alien Earth. We have Romulus, Alien, Aliens. I mean, every other movie comes after this. So my question is, and this is the problem with prequels, unless they kind of explain it in later episodes where, I don't know, maybe they lose all record of this hybrid process that Boy Cavalier was successful in doing, and all that research gets destroyed or something along those lines. This is the problem with prequels is, well, okay, why weren't they able to do that in later movies? So that's the big question, and I wonder what the overarching effect is for the series at large now that Boy Cavalier has achieved immortality. So I'm curious, leave me a comment down below of what you think about this. How does this concept get explored in subsequent episodes with the other corporations fighting for power and for control? And then speaking of power and control, I love how this show is really expanding the lore and the world of Alien. When you really think about it, and I mentioned it on the previous episode, there's not a bunch of lore here. Weyland-Yutani, xenomorphs, facehuggers, engineers, etc., etc. It's not a vastly rich world with lore here. I mean, that's really just about it that we have in the Alien world. This show is diving into some really fresh concepts and some aspects of the universe that I hope gets further explored, and I'm pretty sure they will. And I'll use the example of Boy Cavalier talking with Yutani about her ship that crashed on Earth. Boy Cavalier saying it's basically in his territory now, so she needs to go get her lawyers to talk to his. I mean, truth be told, we have not gotten this before in the Alien franchise where we've had corporations basically fighting each other. We have Boy Cavalier, who is so nonchalant about the whole damn thing, he knows that there is something very important on that ship. In order for Yutani to call him and be like, look, we just want to go on there, get our shit, and then we'll leave. He understands that there is something very important on there. And now that it is in his territory, he's going to take full advantage of taking whatever's on that ship as his own. But again, we haven't really encountered multiple corporations fighting for control and power throughout the series. It's basically just been Whale and Yutani, which kind of begs the question of what happens to those other corporations. Are they there and just the rest of the series just doesn't explore it? Or, I don't know, maybe somewhere throughout this series, it kind of explains how Boy Cavalier got killed and that kind of destroyed Prodigy or something along those lines, where all the other corporations kind of fell at the wayside to Whale and Yutani. I'm very curious and very excited to see how this series further explores all of these corporations, especially when it comes to Prodigy versus Whale and Yutani. And then the other question, and this is just a theory, because I've kind of been thinking about it since I watched the episode again, and I re-watched that scene. She doesn't seem too concerned. It almost seems like this is a trap. So why would this ship be on a course towards Earth, towards a Prodigy specific territory, and it just lands there conveniently? I don't know. This is a theory, but I'm thinking this was a trap. And it kind of goes back into what I just mentioned a few minutes ago, and that is what happens to these corporations later on in the series that we've never explored. Like I said, it's just Whale and Yutani. So what happens to Prodigy from this point forward? Personally think that they found a xenomorph, they put him on the ship, and they said, let's go take out our enemies. I think that would be fucking diabolical for sure. But it begs another question of why would they give up something so big? Why would they give up something so important to do that when they were searching for it for years? So there's lots of questions that I have with this show and with this series and where it's going. Again, there's always issues when you watch a prequel versus movies that have already been set in that universe. You get kind of tied with the writing and whatnot, trying to make sure you don't contradict future canon. So I'm super curious to know where this series goes with some of these concepts that it is introducing into this particular series. And it's mostly the corporation aspect of it. How does Whale and Yutani get so big? What happens to the other corporations? How have we not really ever talked about Earth up to this point? How are the xenomorphs on Earth and the Whale and Yutani never knew about it? Why did they go to that LV-420 back in the OG Alien movie instead of going to Earth? There's so many questions that we have for the future of this series. I can't wait for episode 3 to drop. I really can't. I want more of the show. I love the little Easter eggs that they're dropping left and right, the little breadcrumbs that they're leaving us, and all these questions that I have for the rest of this season. But yeah, overall, really love the episode. Can't wait for 3 to drop. Guys, let me know down in the comments below of what you thought about episode 2. What are some of your overall theories for the rest of this season? Let me know. Correct anything that I've said that's wrong down below if you know any additional lore that I kind of misspoke on. I have never read the comics before, but I've seen all of the Alien movies, and Alien is, I don't know, a top 10 horror movie all time for me. And it is a movie that I just absolutely adore. I love this franchise a lot, but I'd be curious to know what are some of the little lore details that I'm missing out. So leave me a comment down below. And while you're there, hit that like and subscribe button. That's really going to help us out and expand this podcast, this channel further. So I'd greatly appreciate that. And thank you for watching this episode and listen to me rave about Alien. But guys, that's going to be it for me. I will catch y'all next time on the next one. Laters.